right.
All right. We are live. We are live, guys. So today, great day. I'm figuring out the format for LinkedIn Live. We got Stephen Mann from Lafayette, Louisiana. So let's talk a little bit about what's your favorite kind of food down there in Louisiana. What's your favorite?
Wow, that's so much. Well, I got crawfish.
Crawfish.
Boudin.
Some boudin and some crawfish. All right. That's because I grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana. I went to high school down there.
That is so crazy.
Yeah. All right. And we got Ian at Work Adaptive. So Stephen, what's the name of your company?
Leap.
Leap. Okay. Got it. So we'll post let's put the post of your website on the chat window. Okay. Ian, talk a little bit about Pennsylvania, right? And a little bit about what's your favorite food out there?
Yeah, let's see. Anything out of the garden for food, right? So we happen to live in this really beautiful rural area, just about an hour outside of Philadelphia. And actually, I'm looking out at a lake here with an Amish buggy parked at it. So
wow,
you kind of get the picture of we're in Amish territory, but still close to the city.
Wow, and, very cool.
Things grow here, so it's anything out of the garden is my favorite.
Oh, fantastic. And myself, Charles Elwood, I founded a company, solusmatica.com. And more recently, I've been putting my heart out on my sleeve. I started a 3D printing farm, and we had 400 3D printers around the nation, 3D printing visors for face shields. And as part of the effort, we sent 10,000 face shields down to Puerto Rico, the clear plastic, sourced out of New York, shipped here to Holland for laser cutting and down to Dripping Springs, Texas. So that's been a huge effort of mine and connecting people to make an impact. That's my new website I'm working on. It's to influence and make an impact, especially with data. So that's my new brand. I haven't talked to Ian or Stephen about this, but we're going to talk today. It's going to be fun. And I'm going to tee it off. We're going to talk a lot about Power BI, and all three of us, we're in the corporate world. We kind of left. And we saw the journey into Power BI because we saw how powerful Power BI is, how it can influence, how it can move projects along, how it can impact people, impact lives, increase sales. Hopefully we'll try to limit to 30 minutes, but I think this conversation is going to be maybe continued, to be continued, because I think we have a lot to say. So Ian, I'm going to tee you off, and then I'm going to go post the link in a couple of Twitter channels, because I think this is going to be an important live broadcast, and I want other people to be able to watch this too. And I'll chop it up after this, maybe over the weekend, and post it next week too, so that other people can learn from us. Right? There's a lot of lessons learned here. So just to tee it off, Ian, maybe talk a little bit about. And then Stephen, you can jump right into this. But the question is, so which did you start out with first? When you were in the corporate world or you were working, did you come from SQL, or were you from an Excel background, right, or some other background? And then why Power BI, right? I get a lot of questions. It's like, Power BI, I can do that with a pivot chart. Tell me what's the big difference here with Power BI? So I think this is going to be an interesting one. Ian, you can kick it off. I'll start typing over here, and you kick it off.
Yeah. All right. So throughout my career and in this business as well, I've typically, just a little bit of background here, right? I've typically worked with companies that do projects, right? I didn't work in high scale manufacturing or anything like that. It's been people out there trying to do things as projects. Whether that was kind of construction-oriented stuff or professional services projects or whatever. It's about people out there doing stuff and trying to make good decisions on it. And so early in my career, I did a bit more database-y kind of things and a bit more on the technical side. Then increasingly transitioned over to product management of software plus services plus projects kind of product lines. And so I guess I drifted more over toward the Excel side at that point. You're doing financial analysis and, what should we build or buy and all those kind of stuff, right? So there were a couple different spots where I saw that Power BI fit, like its niche. And to me, it's sort of the combination, the best of both worlds, or, it hits that middle spot, right? It's got a lot of the flexibility of Excel, but it's more scalable like software. But when you do that scalability of software stuff, usually you get some inflexibility over on that side. Or yes, it's ultimately flexible. You can build anything, but now you're talking millions of dollars, right? And so there are a lot of problems that really are in that middle space where you need to do some, maybe it's not totally custom analysis, but it needs a special sauce that doesn't just come in a box in a software or in a SaaS. And you're bringing together data often from different software platforms. So you bring it together from your financial system and from your marketing system and from your operations system. And you could do that in Excel, but then you get into the, how refreshable is it, right? And how much can I then share it with the rest of the world versus having this Excel book that is not particularly refreshable and a little too complex to just put into other people's hands. And so that's kind of the niche, the sweet spot that I see it in. Yeah, let me kick it over to Stephen for a second. Same kind of question. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I have a finance background. So as a finance guy, always doing Excel, always working with data, and I have the typical struggles. Everyone does. Big, huge spreadsheets, doesn't work, breaks, and so that got me to look into better solutions to Excel. And I came across Power BI probably 6 years ago, and I just started tinkering with it. And I've been tinkering around with it for like 4 years, just so I can solve my problems that I had with working with big, huge Excel spreadsheets. And from there, I just started using it and saw the power of it. And it's definitely not Excel. It is a supercharged Excel. You connect to any data silos you need to. You don't have to have a lot of technical expertise, because I didn't have really any SQL experience. And like I said, I was a finance guy, and I saw the power of it, and it made my life a whole lot easier. I know that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, I'm back. So I got the link posted on LinkedIn. I got the comments going. So hopefully people, if you're out there watching, comment on where you're from. And just my story with Power BI. So I started early with VBA in Excel. I was working in a lab, and they were getting data in Excel and CSV format, and they wanted to see the charts with kind of lines showing where everything was. So I did a lot of VBA work to bring in the data, cleanse it, make it look nice, and then populate it. And I remember that was a lot of coding, tons of coding, but it was a lot of fun. And then later on in life, I got it. I was working at GE, and I was using Excel to clean the data, and then we would import the data into Access database, actually. And from there, we were kind of reporting on it and doing some queries and stuff. And so my background has been Excel and VBA and Access. And then, it was hard. Like you said, Stephen, you get these big spreadsheets and you're like, VLOOKUPs and values and all these equations and nested if statements that were, I think it broke it after a while. You could only nest 10 if statements, right?
They get so big you can't even open them anymore.
Yeah, and so then I got into Power BI, and Ian, I think you talked about the auto refresh. That has been enormous in terms of impact. So the 3D printer thing, I post some Power BI reports, and it refreshes, I think 8 times a day, and people can see, they sign up their 3D printer and they're like, oh, an hour later, they're a dot on the map, and it shows their impact and engagement, right? And that's probably been the biggest difference for me is, it refreshes data, and it influences and it connects people. So you're taking data and influencing people and showing them how data is changing the company, or in this case, how many 3D prints were coming in, who they were going to, where they were going to in the world. So it was connecting people with data, which was with the refresh. I think that's a big difference too. So Raul, you're joining from Costa Rica?
I am, yeah. Good morning, everybody. Apologies. I was actually meeting with a client, got extended. We had a bit of a breakthrough with some issues we were having, so everybody was too excited, and me included. But anyway,
That's good.
Good to see you guys.
Yeah,
Likewise.
good to see you, Raul. So hey, we've started the conversation, and so the first question is, you have a company down in Costa Rica, right? Is it your own?
Correct. Yes.
Yep. What's the name of it?
RR Ingenieros. It's actually in Spanish, but yeah, it's. Let me see. I am by trade. I studied structural engineering. I've been an engineering manager for 20 plus years here in Costa Rica and in Europe. I lived in Ireland for about 10 years, looking at very big projects. But very early on, I progressed into management. So, and I'm sure you guys are talking about it. I won't go too much into it, and maybe we can keep explaining us about our journey. The more I went up into management, the more I realized data and how important it was, and realized that my passion was doing these overly complicated Excel models to do silly, structural design, because I really liked it, and doing VLOOKUPs and looking anyway. So in the last 3 years, I started using DAX in Power Pivot to try to improve I started helping a lot of clients with their financial analysis, and we're looking at construction projects. It was developments, but what if we do a structure that's a bit heavier, a bit more money up front, but it'll be anyway. About 3 years ago, I started using DAX a lot, and about a year and a half, I focused myself in the business intelligence and business analysis and modeling data.
Wow, interesting. So that was kind of the question I posed to everybody. Was your journey starting out in business in Excel, or was it SQL? And I think all of us are Excel primarily, right?
Most
Yes.
recently, yeah.
Yep. I think we have one person in our group, or a couple in the Pro Plus program and Avi Singh's program, that are SQL people. I think Srini and Kenneth are from the SQL side.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kenneth.
And so that's one of the questions, and maybe we'll go roundtable again. Is so I see certain signatures, right? So Avi talks about this, how if you come from an Excel background, I see certain things in your data model that say, ooh, that's not quite right for Power BI, because you've come from the VLOOKUP world, and I can see signatures of that. And also from the SQL side, if you come from SQL, I see certain signatures. So just for me, the thing I look for is I look for 2 data tables, and if I see a bidirectional going between the 2 data tables and nothing else, I'm like, this is a person that has used VLOOKUP, and they're trying to duplicate VLOOKUP across their data tables, and that's my first signature. On the SQL side, what's really interesting and nice for me is typically the data comes in really clean and in a flat file, typically on the SQL server. And then I'm like, this is really, really nice, because data integrity and everything. But then I start branching it out into the lookup tables, and I start keeping the data in its own data table. But those are kind of the two things I see. And then I start fixing that. I was like, okay, data model, star schema, lookup tables, here we go. So Ian, maybe we'll go in the same order, Ian, Stephen, and then Raul. What are the signatures you see from people that transition, and then you kind of work with them to fix if they come on from either of these 2 routes?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe different than how you answered it. I'll say there are a couple of sticking points that I see, right? And I think they parallel a little bit what you're talking about. But if you're coming from the Excel side, the data modeling is naturally a very tough spot, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't done relational databases before, right? And then the second, I think if you're coming from the Excel side, is more, there are certain things that you can do really easily in Excel, and I run into these myself now, and in DAX, they're just harder. And I think it's actually a bit of a blind spot in the product still, and I'll get to that in a few minutes. But basically, if I've got 2 columns, job sales and job invoiced, and I want to figure out the max between those two and then summarize it down at the bottom, right? So easy to do in Excel. In DAX, that's going to be a tough one, right?
Yeah.
And then if I kind of go to, like, people are sort of forced into that, I think in the kind of self-serve model where you're centralizing your data model a little bit and somebody else is doing that, and you're a really strong at, say, Excel analyst, you've done a ton of Excel modeling and can whip it up in Excel, but now you pretty much get, just the your DAX and the little visualizations are your only tool, right? So that's kind of a spot that I think people end up in there. From the SQL side, I guess a pattern that I see is I want all the relationships the way they were in the database, right? And
I see that too.
You got to kind of move it toward that star schema to be more efficient with slicing and dicing.
Yeah, with a snowflake, and they keep the snowflake, and it's in normalized form, and you've got like 10 nested, and you're like, how do I follow this data? So you're bringing it down into the star schema.
Yeah,
I've seen that. The other one that I forgot to mention is people just getting into Power BI, and it's all implicit measures. I can usually tell. I look over. Are there any measures? Are they grouped together? No, it's all implicit measures. Just they're dragging the columns in. So I see that too. So yeah. So Stephen, maybe you can jump in and, are there any signatures of maybe you can give some insight to our audience is, man, if you're getting into Power BI and you're seeing kind of these things, maybe contact somebody or watch some videos, Avi Singh's videos, or contact one of us to help fix, right? What are some signatures you see?
Yeah, I mean, I come from a lot more of a business side than the technical side. So there's a learning curve from, say, a data modeling and understanding the data relationships. And, DAX, there's a learning curve there. But after you understand it, you can slice and dice your data any way you want. Yeah. In ways that Excel can never do. So yeah, there's a learning curve from the business side in the sense of the data modeling aspect of it. On the technical side, all the tech guys don't like me because they think I'm going to take their job or whatever. I don't know. A little territorial.
Yeah,
But once you understand it, it's from a self-service standpoint, the drag and drop features, you don't really have to understand DAX from the user standpoint.
Yeah. So you're saying once we built the data model, then the end user is just dragging and dropping, and they can ask your own questions. So
correct. I mean,
that's a good point. Yeah, the flexibility. Once you've set the data model up, the flexibility is there for the end user.
Yeah.
And they can ask, it's so flexible. Like with Excel, you could break the equations and then the whole model is broken. But here, the model is kind of hidden from the end user, and they're just dragging the columns in. One other comment is, I think all of us are more on the business side, and we got into Power BI, from kind of a business problem-solving, business solution side, which I think is, one of our strengths is, from an IT side, you were just dealing with the raw data. You weren't really extracting the insights, but where we're coming from is we've spent years making the decisions, trying to get the insights, trying to move projects along. And here we stumbled on this tool that would make our jobs easier. Or that's how I was like, oh, wow, for project management, this changes my world. Getting schedule right on a table, getting insights across the company, where a project is across the whole enterprise, unbelievable value. So that's kind of why I fell in love with Power BI, is because of the power in terms of seeing where all your projects stand. But Rahul, we need to get to you too. Any signatures, anybody, that's first getting into it, or if you're working with a client, what are some things you look for or see where people, if they tweaked a few things, man, it would be so much easier.
Well, I guess something that we all suffer about. The information is all over the place. Is not very well organized.
Yeah.
But from what you guys have mentioned, I think the same thing with dragging and dropping implicit measures. One that I notice is people of Excel calculated columns. for everything. They don't use measures for anything, just calculated column. Well, to get the difference between these two things, you do a calculated column to get the difference between cost and sales, and then to do the percent. So that calculated columns for everything. A thing that, Stephen, what you were mentioning is that the people that get a bit nervous about, I'm going to lose my job. Not lose my job, but it triggered, it made me think of people not wanting to share information because they feel that they would have to send you the information and the tables, and because that's how it's been done up until now. And when you tell them, no, look, just keep your information. Don't worry. All I'm going to do is connect to it and get some of the stuff I need. And it seems to put them at ease. And it's a bit silly, but all these office politics, I've noticed it helps a bit. People still feel like they have full control of their information, of their data. They're not relinquishing it. So that is it's things that I've encountered. What you were mentioning about talking with the IT people in the companies, yes, everything, there's like 4 or 5 dimension tables, and to try to normalize a dimension table is a bit iffy, but it's the best way to do it. And yeah, I agree with you that seems to me like you guys, I was in the business part of it, and I was trying to normalize tables, and at this point I had a table with like 50 rows with clients, and when I found out in Excel, you can do several tables and link them, that was oh my God, I can't believe, it's kind of like tomorrow is Christmas kind of a feeling when I saw that. And that's when I fully got into it. I still do structural engineering, but I'm pivoting, not pivoting away, but I'm focusing on this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's been what you're saying, and I mean, everybody that we get into, at least in my opinion, in my experience, has been Excel.
Yeah.
Like how do I invoke just a row, the row context, and for me that was a struggle, and I still obviously struggle now and then how to invoke the row context for something. But anyway, as we've seen, the potential is crazy.
Well,
go ahead, Peter.
What I found powerful is the ability to share, and share just one report that has with security levels, so you're not creating 10 different big huge Excel spreadsheets. You can collaborate with many people anywhere. I know that was a good feature for a lot of people.
That's true. The service, the ability to put it up in the cloud and have anybody log in, and then have role level security, so you only see certain sets of data, but being able to share those insights across your enterprise. Because before, if you did an Excel, it was emailing that Excel spreadsheet to people, and then they would have to open it up. But man, this ability to share across the enterprise, oh my gosh, so powerful. But kind of so if we go back a little bit to the business user, I know I've struggled with this, is what do I call myself? I think I name myself business intelligence analyst or something, but if you're a business user or a business person, a CEO, general manager, operations manager, and you're looking for somebody like us to come in and put together, the dashboards and reporting, what do you look for, and what do you interview for? Like, how do you know of a good business intelligence analyst or something? So, and I've had people ask me that. It's like, if I want to hire a BI developer, what do I look for? And that goes along the lines of that last question is, if I'm hiring somebody to help me, I look for maybe kind of that they're able to do the lookup tables, the star schema, that they understand measures, DAX and M, that at least they know how to write DAX measures. If they know the filter, how to unfilter, use all to come back out and then zoom back in with the filter function. But a business user may not necessarily know to ask those questions, right? How do I pick a good Power BI developer to help me? So, Ian, I don't know, let's go in that order again. Ian, if you have some insights, what would you look for if you had to hire somebody to help you? Or we could come back to you. Looks like you're
Yeah, I'm gonna stare out the window a second and think about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Okay, stare at
Everybody else
the
is ready.
at that Amish carriage, and
Yep.
we'll go to Stephen first.
Oh, me?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. What would I look for? Well, I mean, I think, a really good business intelligence person, or business analytics, they both have the business acumen on the business side, plus the technical skills. So, that combination, you kind of already know what the user's going to be looking for.
Well, that's a good.
I would be looking, if they have both.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point, because you can write all the DAX and M and create beautiful charts. And charts are easy in Power BI. You just go to the marketplace and you pull in some charts and you click on them, and these beautiful graphs show up. But if you don't know the business side and the process and how to kind of identify the bottlenecks and the process, if you have that experience like we do, and you have both sides of it, man, I can write the M query and the DAX measures to give you this insight, and I can help you translate this data to influence your project too. Holy cow, powerful stuff right there. The combination of both sides.
I know what I've saw is a lot of people don't know what they need.
Yeah.
And so if you have that, business acumen, you can show them what, they don't even know what they need yet.
Yeah. And whereas, yeah, for somebody like you, Stephen, you've been through a couple of these projects, you've been through the analysis. It's like, man, I see a spike in, errors or something.
Yeah. You kind of have to have that analytical mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. The last project I did, a few things could have caused that, and you can lead them, kind of guide them. Like, let's look at this set of data. Oh, very cool. Raul, so, from your experience, and I saw you point there. Some people don't know what they need, so maybe you can chime in on that.
I was thinking that's the thing. Like, let me see. I'll try to. If you see me looking down, I'm not looking at a phone or anything. I'm kind of taking notes.
Yep.
What you're saying, like, to your point, Charles, it's a very good point. Like, okay, clients won't know, and when they hear DAX and whatnot, is like the programming languages, they don't really know that part, and I don't think they should. That's why we were there to translate and create that connection. But if they're trying to hire somebody, what I always try to explain to my clients that is very important. Okay, guys, look, you need to have somebody that knows where will the data be, that they know to ask that. That somebody that is asking, when they're interviewing them, the interviewee should ask, hey, look, where do you guys have your data? How do you share it? Is it on OneDrive? Is it on SharePoint? Is, that they have that concept of that the data has to be somewhere, and it'll have to be shared and distributed. So they should know to ask that, and how to share it. That when you're interviewing somebody, tell them, how do you think we will share this? What are the type of ways you think we can share it, basically? Again, to see that they have that concept of sharing it through different people. As Stephen, you were saying, that they mentioned the fact that they can, from the same report, filter some people out, just so that they are telling you that they have the right concept and the right big scheme of things. Obviously, look at some sample reports. As we all know, something they can be with dummy data or whatnot, but to at least, he or she knows how to put something together. But those two things for me is somebody that knows to ask, how's the data collected, where is it, how often is it is updated, and how to share it. And what you were saying, Stephen, yes, a lot of times talking to the people, they don't know what to ask for, or they didn't know that they could get that. Because it was so cumbersome before. It was so complicated. I did a project with a big company that they wanted me to help them to optimize some reporting for the C suits. They had 2 junior analysts that all they were doing was getting data, because it was a big company. They had about 10 different companies that had been bought, and they had grown inorganically. They had data from everywhere, and once a week, every Monday, they would get 20 different files in 20 different ways with all this stuff. And so somebody from Monday to Wednesday had to clean and scrub and VLOOKUP and if this to put it together for a report on Thursday. So I worked with them for a while and created my Power Query because I had old reports that I could use to corroborate that I was doing something right. And I remember when the first one came through, by Monday afternoon I had it and I sent it over, and they were a bit annoyed. They called me, they're like, look, listen, really? We need you to do the whole thing. And I said, it is there. And then some, because I did some additional stuff. All right, okay. And they called me like 2-3 days later because they had to go through the process they've done for for years. Oh my God. It was, and I explained to them and I passed it on, and I passed on the query to them so they could use it on it. So, yes, that's why I was going like that when Steven said it. It's like, they don't know. Really?
Yeah.
I can get it? So, yeah, I find that very rewarding.
Yeah.
I'm amazed that, so many people don't know, and they are still doing things in that Excel, type of, struggle. And you're spending all your time building these reports, and you're getting errors, and the ability that the power that Power BI has to automate everything. It's really powerful, because now companies now spend their time more on analyzing than scrubbing data.
Yep. Yeah, just real quick, and then I have some stories too. Maybe we could do a whole nother story on experiences we've had. But there was one where, they were printing out the spreadsheets, highlighting certain categories, and then putting, things on the sides, like it added it to this many hours. People were spending hours. And then I automated that, and, it was a push.
You get caught up in Excel hell.
Yeah,
it
really is.
Don't realize anything anymore, because you spend hours and hours looking at your screen at rows and columns.
Yeah, trying to figure out that if. Why is this if not working? And hopefully you've stared out the window long enough.
Yep, I got it.
We're going to come back to you. And just piggyback off Raul and Steven is, one of the things I've seen is you discover, people look at a Power BI report and they'll be like, oh, this is really important for this group, which has never seen this insight or this data before. So then people the light bulb goes off. It's like this group never knew they were the bottleneck. And now we have this chart to show that, how they're impacting all these other groups and how they're delaying everything. So let's give them this data, and then they can bring that down. So yeah, you start seeing how this grows and just grows, exponentially kind of through a company. So Ian, we're going to go to you now.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be tough especially, C-level, general manager level, to assess somebody's technical capabilities in something, right? So I don't know that I would even spend too much digging in that. I think it's more about, are they asking good questions about, as Raul talked about, some of the architecture, where the data is coming from, where does it need to go, the users, what is it what is the problem that they're trying to solve, right? And that you get a sense that they get it, they get what you're trying to solve, and they have ideas about how you might be able to solve it differently than what you're used to, right? And they can express those in a way that you may not fully get it yet, because you haven't seen what's possible yet really for your business, but that you kind of like, yeah, I think I see where you're going with this. That would be different. That would be better, right? And expressing those could be just, it doesn't have to be a full done project. It could be a piece of it. Oh, look, we all talk about Power Pivot every now and then, right? Hey, you end up with data that goes out left to right, and you need it to go vertically. Hey, there's this really easy feature that just does that for you, right? And just showing some of the pieces of it that make it easier and better, because before somebody would have spent time maybe cutting and pasting that, right, in Excel from vertical to horizontal to vertical. Oh my gosh, I spent way too much time doing that in my career. And reporting wasn't even my main job, but it's just sometimes you got to do it, and you hunker down and do it, right? So, but being able to show some of what's possible in bite-sized pieces, because otherwise it just, it can overwhelm you, or it takes a long time to see the entirety of what's possible there. But somebody who can kind of bring you along on that journey and help you see, so that you can, the general manager, the teammate that we're working with in a company, can start to have their ideas about how to do things differently too. So
right. Oh, good point. And after this, I'm going to post all your guys' websites in our comments so that if there is a general manager, CEO out there that's looking for somebody, we can help. So I'm going to jump real quick. A quick question for you guys. So what I've seen, I think you've heard about my story. Is I went on Indeed and LinkedIn and I just pulled down profiles of data analysts, business intelligence analysts, and I looked at what keywords people were looking for. So if I was a hiring manager, and Indeed has a lag, and LinkedIn too, people cut and paste. I think, Ian, we've talked about this, but some of the keywords I saw were SQL, R, Python language. People were still looking for these, and to me, that was kind of the old realm. Now I'm DAX and M, right? This is the new languages, but people were looking at the old. And I just want to query all of you. Have you spent time with Python, SQL, or R? So Ian, Stephen, and Raul.
A little bit with SQL, especially in connecting to things. But there you're looking at a SQL statement. You're understanding what the keys are in it. You're understanding what's in the table, right? It's not a big deal. It's an every now and then thing. I really haven't done anything with Python. I understand some of the use cases for going out and scraping some complex website, or lots of different things you can do with it. And R, no. Usually I can get pretty far without it. I think of those as like phone a friend items, right? Like if I got stuck and I'm just like, man, I don't know how I would do this in Power BI, then I might reach out to somebody that I knew had those skills and ask them to gin something
exactly
up.
That's and the one thing I've tended to focus on DAX and M, and that does 99% of the value generation. And then if I really need help, I call a friend, like you said. So Stephen, what about thoughts on you? Have you looked into any of those, or are you primarily focused?
I've looked into them. I know a little bit of SQL. But I don't really use any of that. I mean, with Power Query and DAX, you can get a lot accomplished.
Right.
Anyone going to Python or anything like that? I mean, that's big data. You get into large amounts of data, and you're trying to solve some really complex problems.
Yeah.
From a statistical standpoint. So I mean, a lot of companies are not there yet.
Yeah, and typically I find you can, like they import the full database, and you got relationships. You can pick out the two tables, and then DAX and M will clean it all up and give you all the insight, and then you can expand from there. So, Raul, what are your thoughts on other languages, and have you had to use any of them?
I agree with you guys. What you guys are saying, I haven't, to be honest, at all. Python, I know of it. My brother is a systems engineer, very high level. I know he uses it a lot. That's his main thing. But no, I don't. I've downloaded R because I had some visuals, and I've gone away from using third-party visuals, I guess. As you were saying, Power BI in itself has the ability to do 90-something% of things. That's the thing. And sorry, going back a bit, what Stephen, what we're all saying, I guess, not only the Power BI part is important, but the business part of it is the fact that we've been managing, we've struggled so much with a million things we wish we could track and whatnot. We knew it was there. Is something as simple as Pareto, 80-20 graph. Several of my clients, a lot of them, high level people don't know of it, and the value you can get from that, and how it focuses your attention to. So that triggered that thought when you said, with Power BI you can do 90% or whatever of what you need. Yeah.
And that's why I think a lot of when I said you kind of have to steer. Companies don't. A lot of companies don't really know what they want, because they've been living in this world where it's basic information. I'm still shocked that a lot of companies are making decisions just on a wing and a prayer, and have insight and data behind that decision.
Yep. No, that's a good point. That's true. So Stephen, before we got on, I kind of told you I like to say we're going to do this in 30 minutes. The clock up here says 39 minutes. So that's been how these live LinkedIn conversations have gone. They're so insightful, so valuable. And I have so many more questions. I would like to invite all three of you guys back, maybe in a couple weeks or something, because I think this is going to generate even more questions. But I'd like to end with this. So all four of us have started our own journeys, started our own businesses, and there's going to be some viewers out there that are thinking about that, right? And I want to end with some of the why and why I did this, right? I was in the corporate world for 18 plus years. I wanted to kind of make my own mistakes, kind of make decisions on where I spent my own time. And another thing was freedom to spend my time where I wanted to allocate it. And, one of the things was with family. So I want to spend time with my kids. One is going to be a junior next year in college. A couple of years he'll be off, or junior this year in high school, and he'll be off to college. So, I was like 2 more years left. I can't get that time back. I want to own my own time and spend time with him. And I had plans to go sailing with him today, but it rained on us. So we're going to have to wait till tomorrow. So Ian, let's go in the same order and, talk a little bit about your journey and this newfound freedom, and what are your thoughts on it to potentially inspire or not?
It was similar, spending more time with family. So I traveled for a long time, many years, let's say 15 years, probably about a third of the year, right? So leave on Monday, come back Thursday, go, be home a few weeks and work from home and then do it again. And I discovered I don't miss that travel. I really don't. It's been fantastic. I tripled the size of our garden, and I love being home and just being around the kids when they get off the bus and everything all the time. So that's good. The surprising thing beyond that was maybe with all the freedom that you described there comes, this. Okay, so what do I focus on? This thing or this thing? How much of this thing? How much of that thing? Right. And whereas before there were clear things to hand off, like, okay, I'm going to do a marketing thing now, some thought leadership piece. Oh, well, what I should do is, sit with the marketing department for 30 minutes, brief them. They already know who all the buyers and that kind of thing are. So they'll take it from there. Right. And there's no automatic, somebody else will take it from there. And that shouldn't be a surprise, but it's just a surprise at how much of it you're kind of needing to juggle your focus and figure out what's the best thing you can focus on any given day or hour. So that's the stuff for me.
Oh yeah, that's a good point, like what to do. And I have a quick story about that well, I'll just tell it now. When I first started this, I remember the first week, you get all your stuff done because you decide, well, I'm going to get this chunk done. And if you get it done by 12, you're like, well, what do I do now? It's like I have free time. It's like I've never had free time before. I can walk the dog. I can walk to the beach. It was a strange feeling owning your own time. Inspirational, but a little bit weird to work with it. Like, what do I do with this? So, Stephen, how about you?
I started it out of necessity, actually. It's interesting. What was it? Right before the beginning of this year, I got laid off, and I had implemented Power BI within that corporation, and I got laid off on a Friday, and they called me back on Monday to hire me back as a consultant to manage, Power BI within the organization. So that's it was kind of forced upon me, but I'm glad it happened. So from there, I had to transition from, worker bee to, owning your own time. The struggle for me was selling. I'm not a great seller, so just transitioning into that world was, it still is somewhat of it, a struggle. Just going out there and selling. You're in a whole new environment. You're wearing a different hat than you did before. But it's fun. You're learning whole different, how to market yourself, and it's a different world, but it's fun.
Well, so Stephen, that's a really powerful story about how influential and powerful Power BI is to be laid off and to be brought back in. What you said in the next day or a couple days?
Well, it was a Friday, and they called me on a Monday.
On Monday, over the weekend. So that just goes to, And I've heard multiple stories like that. Is people implement Power BI and then they go on a road show around the company, or like they're like, "Oops, this is a really important situation." That doesn't happen too often, right? So the power of what you can do with data, I think,
Well,
is
because I had taken that project over and just ran with it, and so I don't think they understood what was involved in it. So so yeah, I mean, it's good for me.
Yeah. And I think along your point, if it's hard to sell, but when you have something as valuable as we have, the skills in DAX and M, and then we have the business side too, it makes it so much easier to sell, because what you're giving to the company is going to be worth, a lot more than they're going to pay you, because it's going to change their company for so much better. And just knowing that you have that ability to impact another company just makes the sales process so much easier. But for me, Ian, it looks like it's been for you. You're nodding your head.
You understand what their issues are.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, and along the Ian's point is, we also, from the business side, know to ask about processes, bottleneck, or we get into the problem. What are you trying to do? Deliver it faster, cost? We ask the process problems, we ask the iron triangle problems, and we get to the root of the problem. And then we can use data as one of the tools to solve it too. So, which is, Ian, that's a good point. Raul, so you're a little bit about your journey and what is the newfound discovery on your new journey?
It's similar to Stephen's. I was working for a big corporation, and I was let go a bit unexpectedly. Well, maybe a yes, no. They got bought out. There was a merger, and so the normal, the usual. And I decided to focus on this part of data and model with this tool 100%, because I had done, like I was mentioning before, financial analysis and what if at a very low level in terms of cost for doing construction certain way, because I would do I still do a little structural design, and then help the clients with the project management of the projects, and hiring people and material and talking to vendors to make deals on material and money. And anyway, so after I was let go about a year and something ago, I spoke to my wife. I have 2 little kids, and I said, no, I'm going to focus on this. So I went into it. I have clients. Actually, I have very few clients here in Costa Rica. The majority, I have clients in the US, clients in Spain. The fact that I speak Spanish and I speak Portuguese helps me. I've had clients from Malaysia for short little things, but I did know of the freedom and having to work from home. Very difficult. I get up, I shower, I get dressed. Not but I do get dressed, and I don't walk around in flip flops, because that I knew of that mental state, and okay, I'm at work, because I had been an independent worker before. I was working with this other company that eventually let me go. But yeah, selling, as Stephen said, I'm not bad, but I'm not great. I'm learning to tell the story, get out there, let people know that it is there. A lot of people don't know that they need Power BI.
Yeah,
I think they do, but these kind of sessions are great. Get the word out. Let the world know that it is there, and it's very easy and cost effective.
I know. Also, I don't think people understand, because before, if you did it, if you bought any kind of software, especially a business intelligence tool, it was expensive, and it was it was a big project, and I don't think people realize how cheap it is, and how easy it is to implement. You don't need this huge team.
Exactly. Yes. Like before, you would have need something that would have been done only for the C-suite with 2-3 analysts that would cost you, I don't know, $200,000 a year to run on labor and 401k contributions and whatnot. You can do for $20,000-$30,000.
Yep.
Once, with maybe a $12,000 a year upkeep to have somebody help you support it. Something that would have cost $200,000 before can be done for $10, $15, $20,000.
Yeah, $20,000. I had a project like that before.
No,
Yeah.
no,
I think on the flip side of that, right, is you can afford enough of it that it now lets you take on problems that can unbottleneck growth, right? So not even just on the cost side, on the, hey, let's say it would have been too expensive to try that new thing, right? But you can now try it because the cost threshold is low enough and it can totally change the trajectory.
And
So,
and then it's an easy sell. So I've had one client like that. I did one project. The value from the project was incredible. So then they were able to sell me, and the project and Power BI for more, so they've been back for the third time. Because once you show them how much value you can create for them, then it just cascades and they're like, we need to go back to this guy because he can add this value so fast, so cheap. Let's just keep growing this, and bottling all the value. So
the ROI on doing a Power BI business model is incredible. It's astronomical.
Yep. And so Stephen, before we started too, I'm going to end on a couple notes. You talked about the selling thing, so that's a common theme. Raul, you talked about that too. So maybe in a couple weeks, you guys, if you're up for it, let's come back and talk about our journey along the lines of learning, because that's a struggle for me too. Social media presence, LinkedIn presence, these live videos, all new to me. Sales Navigator, that's all words and things I've a year ago I didn't even touch with. And Ian, you helped introduce me to that. But just one last thought, Raul. This has opened. Before business was primarily local, right? If you had manufacturing or your world was, if you started something, it was there was geographic limitations. But like you, I've had clients in Mauritius, Australia, Sweden, all over the world. And especially through Avi, he kind of introduced me to, with data, with, the ability to use Zoom and do everything remote. It's opened up this market, this world to me. And there's enough people that are looking for, Power BI help that it's kind of grown. So that I was going to end it with that thought. Thanks for reminding me, Raul. But yeah, it's like the world is open to us, with Power BI, and the value is so incredible. So that I wanted to end with that. It's been 52 minutes, very insightful stuff. Thank you guys for joining me. And if you're up for it, let's do this again, because I think we could go on for a couple more hours with some of this discussion. So
that was fun.
Really good stuff. So I'll see you guys if you're up for it in a couple weeks, right, guys?
All right, y'all.
Good. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everything. Have a good one, guys. Great.
Yep. Thanks,
great
guys. Bye.